Hello and welcome to Everything End of Life with me, Jason Cottrell, and guests. And my guest today is Carrie Doyle, who is not only a hospice trustee, but also a registered nurse and a midwife, a soul midwife, which is like a doula, or is a doula, you could say, and is also a celebrant. So we know about celebrants from the audio podcast from Buzzsprout. So if you haven't heard that before, there's a whole series of interviews about different people, different things on Buzzsprout. But for now, good morning and welcome, Carrie Doyle.
Good morning, Jason. Lovely to be here.
Okay, good. So, for those who don't know about your past, let's just kick off a little bit with how you got to become a trust. It's a long journey, I'm sure. So, but
Very
how you
long
got to
journey,
become,
as you can see.
get off. How you became a trustee of a hospice. So where does that all begin?
Right. Okay, so I guess for me, the whole thing about hospice started very, very early on in my life, if you like. So I'd lost my nan when I was 6 weeks old, lived with my granddad. My granddad died when I was very young. So I'd had a lot of bereavement, if you like, and as a child, witnessed a lot of bereavement. Anyway, so sort of fast forwarding, always had my mum. My mum was constant, but my dad was an alcoholic, and that was quite traumatic childhood, but it does lend itself to you learning how to care for your siblings, how to care for your parent that is being abused all the time. So it actually sets the scene for that, if you like. And
you know, I've got to say, I've heard this quite a bit, is when you have either an abusive parent or a difficult parent, and you have to then become the parent, in a sense. So you could become in the caring role, and that leads you into a caring role professionally as well. Is that something that kind of you identify with?
That's exactly right. And there's a lot of research, and I can't recall a specific piece of research, but there is a lot of research around that. And I guess there is something around that need to be needed that sits within you. And I think you have to be very aware of that as you go through your career and your life, because it can be very positive, but it can also have a negative aspect. And I guess, you know, when I was at school, I left school with no qualifications. I was a real rebel. In fact, I didn't go to school for a whole year. I was an absolute nightmare for my poor mum. And of course, at the time, they didn't have telephones, so we didn't have a phone anyway. But there was no way that my mum knew I wasn't in school until the school board person turned up, and then she knocked 10 shades of the out of me.
Wasn't it a truant officer? Was it a truant officer?
Yeah.
That's what it was, wasn't it?
It was a truant officer, but everybody, all the naughty kids in the town knew the truant officer. It was they'd been sent at your house. Anyway, so, and I wanted to be a journalist and never ever thought I was brainy enough. And my little mum, who's lovely, she was always saying, you know, go into nursing, you'll always put food on the table, you'll always have a job. And actually that is right. And anyway, in the end, I applied to do my nursing, met a fabulous tutor at Old Church who gave me a place to do my SRN. And latterly, I contacted her just to say thank you for the chance and the opportunity that she'd given me. Yeah. She was beautiful. She was absolutely lovely. Always believed in me. Very eccentric, and I think we connected on that score. Anyway, went through my nurse training. Long story short, really, went into district nursing, met some amazing, lovely people, but always had a bit of a passion for end of life and palliative care. And my first course actually was at St Helena, and at that point in time, St Helena was the biggest education provider for palliative care, and I'm talking sort of late 80s, early 90s. It was amazing, and I just passed my driving test. I used to travel in with two other girls from from Thurrock who used to laugh at me in my driving because I was a bit of a nutcase. And we used to roll out of the car park at St Helena's, either, always a little bit late, laughing, really, we'd just be in fits.
Yeah.
And there was a tutor there, Terry McGee, and Terry was another really important person in my life. She totally got me, and she spoke about how people were individuals, which was something I always felt. And those little things, like making sure that at end of life people can see out the window. Why do we put people miles away from a window? Yeah. Those little things that connect us with the earth, if you like. And then for me,
and the hospice, it's got to be said, if you look out at most windows in the hospice, it's beautiful. They've really, at St Helena, I know, because, I used to work there. But if you look out of any window, it's all green and little ponds, and so it really is something. I think that's a very good point, you need to be able to look out the window. And I think from almost every bed, you can look out the window in St Helena.
And that's beautiful, isn't it? Because we are part of the earth, we're part of nature, our very existence. And I guess I continued in my nursing career, ended up at Fairhavens in Southend and led their palliative care team. Then had a bit of an epiphany when I got to 50 and thought, do you know what? I'm going to go back into the acute trust, which was crazy. Applied for a job at Bart's Health. Never thought I'd get it, but did. And so started travelling into London again. And then went back to a community trust and helped them set up an integrated care system for end of life with some amazing people at Whipps Cross. Brilliant, lovely people, all very like-minded, wanted to create a service whereby people could get what they needed when they needed and wrapped itself around the person.
So give me an example of that. What would that look like for somebody who's got end of life? What does integrated mean? What is that?
It means that you'd have to make one phone call and you'd get all the help you need, rather than phoning one service and then telling you to phone another service, telling you to phone somebody else. Okay. Which actually, if you're caring for somebody at end of life and there's a problem, you're anxious, the person's anxious, all of that anxiety exacerbates their pain and exacerbates their feelings of distress. So if you can alleviate some of that by giving one point of access, which actually single point is at St Helena now, that tends to work very much like that.
It's a brilliant thing, that single point, and we'll have, there is an interview on the Buzzsprout thing with Katie Billimore, and I'll get her back on to talk about single point and other issues. But yeah, that having one folks, that's a brilliant thing to create, have been part of creating, because just that taking the stress out of everything, rather than what's the GP's number, what's the district nurse's number, what's the clinical nurse specialist's number, are they in, are they there, that having just one phone number, that is just such a brilliantly awesome idea. So it comes from a compassionate soul, I think.
It was just wonderful. And aside from that, we had a service that would actually go in and spend time with the person, because I think as a district nurse or a Macmillan nurse, you don't have that time. You try to give that time, but invariably your caseload's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You're sitting talking to somebody and you know that you've got probably 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 people after that person that you've got to go and see. And that pressure, with all the will in the world, when you try not to let that influence you, how are you going to have those really important conversations around advanced care planning, advanced what's important to that person? And so after that, I became professional lead for end-of-life care and community nursing at the Royal College of Nursing. And that had a UK-wide responsibility. And that was brilliant because I met people from all over the UK, went on the picket line with the nurses in Belfast, which was part of my bucket list. I've always wanted to be on a picket line.
Yeah,
it was just fun. Yeah, it was. It was really cool. And
power to the people, that's it. Right.
Then through COVID, I got a bit fed up with arguing around the visiting rules, I guess, because for me, it was, why can't we teach families to put on PPE? You know, we're stretched. Let families come in and look after their loved ones within the environment that we're in. And I guess, you know, of course there's health and safety issues. Of course there's infection control issues. But when people are dying, you have to balance what is the lesser risk. Yeah. And for me, we're going to have so many people in the future that suffer really, really difficult grieving because they weren't alongside their loved ones when they were dying.
Yeah, that is something. That's something that's coming down the line, isn't it? Because I think we've learned, if there's another pandemic like that, I think a lot of people will say, no, hang on, okay, so there are the rules and they are important to adhere to, but over and above that, we can make room for a lot of dispensations, if you like. The COVID, I think, took everybody by surprise, and we all said, well, we really must, you know, do the right thing, and everyone was trying to do the right thing. But I think it went way over the top for a lot of people, and I think you're right. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to struggle with grief further on down the line. And we have got somebody coming on to talk about grief and all that sort of reactions, if you like, different types of reactions to not just end of life care, but end of anything, really. Anyway, sorry I interrupted. You crack on.
No, that's perfectly okay. That's cool. So I really missed being alongside people, and I did a little bit of teaching with during COVID with nurses that hadn't gone into end of life care, but invariably had been, you know, moved across to look after people at end of life. And quite interestingly, I'd had a very young mental health nurse that was really traumatised by her experience of looking after somebody that was dying during COVID, who really stuck to the rules, done everything she was told to do, but was overwhelmed with the situation that she was in. And her voice stays with me forever, really. I sort of think we need to look at what we're doing to one another during those sort of situations. But I digress. So I retrained as a funeral celebrant and a soul midwife, which is similar to an end-of-life care doula, but is slightly different in that the background of so many soul midwives probably comes more from a therapeutic background, whereas I think probably end-of-life care doulas probably come more from a caring nursing background. So a lot of soul midwives can do Reiki, can do complementary therapy, massage. They're very driven by providing that holistic whole person centric care, and they're very, very hands-on. So they may do slight hand massage just to help somebody relax, some breath work when people are frightened and they can't, you know, struggling to breathe for a number of reasons. And for me, it was very intuitive. And it was intuitive in the way that even as a district nurse, when I had got called into a very distressed family, very early in the morning, actually, it was at 7:30, I'd gone into work very early, and the phone kept ringing and ringing. And we didn't start till sort of 8:30, but I actually just thought, oh, I'm going to answer the phone. Somebody must need something. Don't keep ringing and ringing. And there was a really distraught daughter on the phone, and there was 3 daughters, and they were caring for mum. And in the end, I said, do you know what? I'm just going to come round. So I went round to the house, and it was chaotic. It was, the daughters were pacing, mum was struggling to breathe in the bed, very much actively dying. Yeah. Very young district nurse in the conservatory trying to arrange medication. And God love her, that, you know, sometimes we feel that we need to be doing something. Yeah. And I could see this lady was dying. And I just went and sat beside the lady and just stroked her arm and said to her, this is okay, this is fine. And spoke to the girls and said, you know, mum's dying. Why don't you just come and sit with her? And we all just sat there, and was just really peaceful. I said, just talk to mum, tell her it's okay. Down, yeah. And the whole thing just calmed down and became quite beautiful. And in the background, I could hear the young district nurse trying to arrange medication. And interestingly enough, just as she came out of the conservatory door and said, I've got it all sorted, we've got to go and collect it, the lady gently passed away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she gently died, and
Yeah.
it was beautiful. But for me, I guess St Helena, because that was the place my journey started, and obviously I'm getting older, I've retired, although I'm busier now than ever, doing various different things. St Helena it's like coming home for me.
Right.
And it's very, very close to my heart. And I walk in that building and, you know, it may not have single rooms for everybody. It may not have everything that modern hospice movement feel that we need to have, but you can feel the love. And actually, the most important thing for people when they're dying isn't that they're in a single room, because sometimes for some people that can be quite isolating.
Yeah.
But it is that they feel loved and cared about.
Yeah.
You know, and being a trustee enables me to influence that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people think, oh, shut up, you're harping on about that again. But actually that's, you know, and I'm a
it's so important
counsellor.
to harp on about, though, isn't it? I mean, it's
Of course
you know,
it is.
we spend, I mean, as you use the word midwife, we spend, you know, so much money on bringing people into the world, and naffle spending money when they're going out of the world, you know. So it's really badly weighted, I kind of think, you know.
And a soul midwife is exactly that. It's about supporting the soul as it transitions out, you know, to another world or wherever that person believes that they're going to. And it's quite secular, it's non-denominational. We care for everybody as human beings. But when you were saying that when we were saying about being close to nature, sometimes you just need to take your socks off and put your feet on the ground, because that really grounds you.
You know what? I had I trained in hypnosis psychotherapy many, many years ago. And one of the ladies there, I was having quite a bit of a stressy day. The patients on my ward had themselves had a difficult day, and there was a couple of restraints and sort of things going on. Long time ago, this was. And she just sat me down and she said, right, Jason, take your shoes and socks off. And I just looked at her and went, what are you on about? And she just put my feet in a bowl of warm water, and it just changed my state, you know, completely. And my shoulders went down, I breathed, and it was like, oh, right, okay, now I'm back. All right, thank you for that. It's such a strange thing to do, though. And you're right.
But it's not.
You know, it's not, is it? Quite normal.
Because when you look all through history, when you look at all the religious texts, there is always something about feet, and I love feet. And quite often I just stand at the end of the bed if I'm talking to people and just rub people's feet. Although that has got me into trouble on one or two occasions when people don't like it.
Yeah, my daughters...
Get off your feet.
My daughters, they freak about their own feet, and I don't know why. They call them grippers. They say, I don't like to look at it with my own grippers, letting about anybody else's. You know, I think, that's a weird thing, isn't it? Just feet are feet, aren't they?
I love that. I love that. But, you know, I can remember my granddad having his feet in a bowl of water.
Yeah.
And that seems, so there is absolutely something about how that, you know, and it is a real act of love to wash somebody's feet, isn't it?
Do you know?
So you look through religions and they all do, there's all that in there.
When St Helena had the virtual ward, which is not there now, but there's a different service called Bluebird, which is just as important and just as effective. That was one of the things that we used to regularly do when we went into people's homes, is to put people's feet in a bowl of water. And when I first, about 5 years ago, when somebody first said, and she'll get me a washing up bowl and we'll put your feet in that, and I just looked at them and went, that seems like a weird thing to do. And then I've been doing it ever since to people. Here's a bowl of water. Should we just soak your feet through it? Do you want to have that done? And the kind of, on there when they put their feet into warm water, you know, it's a lovely thing to see.
They
you know?
do.
Yeah.
But equally, Jason, they can't run away.
Got you now.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right. Gotcha.
No, but it is beautiful. It's lovely.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, it's about that connection.
So being a So you're not a doula, you're a midwife. You're a soul midwife. I like that. So tell me a bit more about, you said it's that holistic approach, which is different from going in and, how would I say, just being there, just being helpful. I mean, what is the role that you do?
And it's an interesting one because the majority, different soul midwives will work in very different ways. And we all train at the Soul Midwifery School. It's international. The soul midwives all over the world, which is lovely because we get a picture, if you like, of how things are going in Canada, what's happening in Canada. And it's been extremely useful with the assisted dying bill that's going through Parliament at the moment because there are soul midwives that work with that. But for me, and we don't refer to patients as patients or people, we refer to them as friends because you are actually being a compassionate friend. So you are doing pretty much what that person needs you to do. Yeah. And for some, that might be that you help them with their advanced care planning. You might help them write letters to their children. But equally so, you might just be that person that they can share those deep, deep things that are in their soul that they haven't shared with people before.
It's a very compassionate thing, isn't it?
It's so compassionate. And sometimes, I've been with people and you might just be doing gentle hand massage or gentle foot massage, just very, very light touch interventions. And people open up. And I've had ladies tell me about children that they had in the 40s and 50s that may have died or they may have had to give up. And, when you speak to people's families, these are things that people have not spoke about for a very, very long time. So you almost help them unlock that door to release those, or to release that grieving, that grief, that bereavement, whatever's happened in their life. And sometimes people have done things that they really wish they hadn't have done. There may be people that had bullied other people at school, been quite nasty to people. And I always think, the stuff that you did at school, maybe you forget. But for some people, they don't. No. And they really need to make their peace. And it's just beautiful. And it's interesting because people go, it's all very spiritual and very religious. Actually, it's not religious. It's about the human connection. And I love it. I'm so privileged to be able to do that with people.
Almost facilitating epiphanies, isn't it, I think, to some degree. And I think I've got to bring up the grumpy side because it's, you've painted a beautiful picture, very serene, but sometimes you can go into somebody's place and they're just grumpy. I'm going to die and I hate the world. Yeah, you're all horrible, And I think one of the most compassionate things you can do is just to make them laugh, to make them smile, I had one guy, we were going into him and he didn't talk to many people and he didn't want to get into his bed. He just sat on the edge of his bed, but he always watched cowboys films. The telly was on 24/7 with cowboy films, all the old cowboy films. And he'd just go, no, I've had a wash. I'm all right, leave me alone. I don't want any pills, go away. And one day I walked in and I brought him these two toy guns, Colt 45 things, and I said, "Happy Christmas," and I gave them to him, and he looked at me, and a big smile went across his face because he knew that I got what he was all about, just the cowboy thing, and he got his relatives to tape these guns to the television. So, he died about a couple of weeks later, but that put a big smile on his face, and that was, I think, his slight turning point from when. He started to allow people in and to have a wash and to take his pills and things. So it's not always such a straightforward journey, is it? And I'm sure you've come across that kind of thing where you've got to find a way in sometimes.
You have. And actually, you are right. The ability to be able to smile and laugh. And I think sometimes we lose that because we're so busy, we don't smile at people, and that transfers. When you smile, invariably people smile back. Very few people don't smile back. But in my experience, those people that are grumpy and challenging are usually the most needy.
Yeah.
You know, they're usually really, really lonely. And as a very young district nurse in Camden, we had a gentleman that nobody really wanted to go into. He was contrary. He used to moan about everything, chuck everything around. But actually, he had nobody. And one day the penny dropped that every time I was trying to get out the front door, he'd be kicking off about something else, because he really didn't want you to go. And the only way he could keep you there was by behaving like that. And actually, when you got to know him, when you sat down and you spoke to him, you know, he had been, you know, a business person. He'd had a family which he was estranged from, so there'd been some trauma there. But he'd had such an interesting life, Jason. But who did he have to share that with?
Yeah, to listen
you know,
to.
Loneliness is dreadful, isn't it? It's going to be the biggest killer in our society today.
Well, look at that.
And I guess that's what
that whole thing Esther Ranson started off. What is she doing? She's just created a kind of whole organisation where
Silver Line.
That's it. Yeah. So you know, your loneliness is just horrible. You know, kind of thing, and it's something we ought to actually address. You know, with the GP surgery. You know,
and I think sometimes we all want to be technicians, we all want to be academics, we all want to be up there, but actually for lots and lots of people it's the gentle stuff. It's just the being the good neighbour, being the person. And I'm a nosy neighbour, as my neighbours know. In fact, I used to have those curtains that go up in the middle. My husband used to say that so I don't have to do that. Crane me neck to look at the curtains. So I am a bit of a curtain twitcher.
Yeah.
But my neighbours, they know that, and they know that, you know, if there's a milk bottle on the doorstep or I've not seen them for a couple of days, I'll be the person shouting through the letterbox.
You all right, mate?
All right. Or climbing the fence.
Yeah. Now,
poking me to get back off.
That brings me nicely on to compassionate communities, which is something that has started to develop from, I think, Sean Leake, the mental health runner, and Greg Cooper up at St Helena Hospice. And it's something that's beginning to create a network of people who are all singing from the same song sheet. And I think you're a part of that. Is that correct?
I am a part of that. And as you know, I'm a district councillor in Tendring. And in Colchester, the compassionate communities has taken off prolifically. In Tendring, we have got lots and lots of really wonderful, compassionate people that are all doing fabulous bits of work. And it's how we start to connect them. And it is quite funny, Jason, because I am a little bit off, a little bit wacky, I think, probably, off-piste. And I said to Greg, I'm going to go and sit in the charity shop. There's a little charity shop near us. It's a £1 charity shop. Everybody loves it. People travel. I'm going to go and sit in there and talk to people. So there I do. I pull up an armchair and an old television unit and put my leaflets on it.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
And sit between a row of ladies' dresses and a row of men's trousers. And people come in and I go, hello. And they're like, whoa.
But
Who's that woman again? I know, but it's brilliant. And, you know, people come and talk to you and they tell you about their bereavements and they tell you what. And so many people want to be part of that community.
Yeah.
You know, part of just giving and receiving. Sharing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's lovely. It's wonderful. And yeah, I do a bit of that with Greg and Sean. And I love it, but I just see it as an extension of what I already do. And, you know, Greg pretty much says yes to, because I'll go, oh, can I go and stand on Christmas Island? Can I go and do this?
Yeah, go and do that, like, Carrie. Yeah, it'll make an effect. He knows you're a person who will have an effect on other people.
But people run away from me.
Yeah, well, Only at first, maybe.
Yeah, only at first.
Only at
But
first.
it's lovely. And I
Yeah.
love it. And Clacton gets a really bad press, but I like Clacton, and people always talk to you. And
Yeah.
I just think that's how life should be, isn't it?
Yeah.
You
They are very chatty down in Clacton. I used to, in my other work, which as you know, I distribute cooking oil for a living. It's, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it means I get to drive around the
You
countryside.
make it exciting.
Oh, do you know what? I love the job because I'm driving around, looking at red kites floating around in the sky, go through the countryside. The Suffolk-Essex borders are just amazing. And, all the animals in the fields, and it's just beautiful. And I get to steal recipes from chefs, which is brilliant. But you go down to Clacton, and there's always, as you're walking down the street, there's always somebody who'll turn around and say, "Right, mate." What? And they are just, I don't know, it's something about that place that they are just friendly and chatty, So it's quite nice,
It does get a bad press, and I'm really proud of being a counsellor there, because it means that I can promote compassion. I can promote that we need to care for each other all through our life trajectory.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday I was talking to a bus company about trying to change a bus route, and even that we'd sort of put a spin on it around health, because actually if we take away the bus service, then people become even more isolated. They shop online because they can't get to the shop. They don't go out to see anybody because they can't get there. We've got a really elderly demographic, and by default, they're going to have more things wrong with them. They'll become more isolated. They won't be able to drive. We need those buses, even if it's just to get them all having a sing along on the bus. That's going to be my next venture.
Oh no, I want to be on that bus. That's for sure.
It'll be the happy bus.
The happy bus. Yeah, don't get on that bus. They
Don't
make me
go on the
sing.
happy bus.
Don't go to the happy. They make me sing songs. I don't want to be happy.
Yeah,
And do you know
love that.
what is wonderful is, and Sean will say this, is this compassionate community. It started off with about 2 or 3 people, and now, the last meeting I went to was about 20, 25 people, all from different organisations, and, they're promoting this idea of unity, of sharing and caring and this. And it's an amazing thing that one little action can spark a ripple of goodwill, I think. And I think that's where the compassionate communities really comes into its own. And what's really lovely is they do nominations. You can be nominated to be a compassionate champion, and a lot of people have. I nominated Richard and Nikki Bowditch from the Tom Bowditch Foundation, and they got an award, which was lovely. But it went to the town council, and it's a recognition of the charity work that they do for teenagers and young people who have got cancer or other life-limiting illnesses. And I saw Richard the other day, and I hadn't seen him for a while. He said, I was standing in the co-op and with the kids, and he said, "Oh, hello, Jason." And I turned around, there he was. I said, "Oh, Richard, how are you? I haven't seen you for ages." He said, "Yeah, I've got an MBE, And I went, "What?" He said, and he turned around, and on the front page of the Gazette was him and Nikki receiving an MBA for their work in charity.
Aww.
And I thought that was absolutely beautiful. It's such a strange moment. I thought, I'm sure that's probably not because of the interview I did, but I'd like to think it was contributory to it, But
it's lovely.
it is. And, them being compassionate champions, I think it's a great example, if you like, to others. That you can do so much for other people with not, with just a little goodwill, if you like, a little goodwill to go far. It goes a long way. So yeah. Right. Listen, I've probably got to cut it short because I've got one of those days where I've stacked far too much into it. But it's been amazing.
Everybody to sleep. I'm really good at putting people to sleep.
Oh, get off. No, you're the best
Clear a
tonic.
party in no time.
Not at all. You're the best tonic, for sure. So I'm going to say thank you so much. But before I go, how can people get in contact with you for your soul midwife work?
They can contact me through my website, which is dying2care.com.
Dying to Care.
Dyingtocare.com.
I like that. Did you make that up?
I did.
That's brilliant. Dying to Care. So, yeah, all right. Well, that's fabulous. And thank you so much for taking the time to tell me all about your work and the hospice and the trustees and stuff. It's been absolutely fabulous. And I will no doubt...
It's been amazing.
See you at the next...
Thank you, Jason.
See you at the next meeting. All right. Thanks a lot.
Brilliant.
See you later.
Bye, love. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.